And now it is time for the ultimate segment of Liberty Nation Radio. We entitle it Talkin' Liberty. It's self-explanatory. As we welcome in our regular contributor and constitutional lawyer and LibertyNation.com legal affairs editor, Scott Cosenza. Do you realize how much time we carve out of the segment just introducing all your various credentials?
Tim, it's one of the most important parts of the segment, which, as you know, is my favorite part of the show in total. So I think it's time well spent, and hello to you.
Well, now that we've established your unshakable bona fides, let's discuss, we can't avoid it, Scott, Attorney General William Barr appearing first before the Senate and then before the House, not because they changed the rules on him. Let's cut to the bottom line and then let you fill as you see fit here. It seems to me what the Democrats are doing is trying to destroy Mr. Barr's reputation as a hedge against whatever he ultimately reveals about Obama Justice Department spying on the Trump campaign. That's coming down the road shortly, and they want to discredit him well before these revelations. Agreed?
Yes, and also, Tim, they do want to try to discredit the report itself. They want to be able to keep the whiff of collusion out there, even though I think to you and I and almost every other American who's cared to spend a moment critically analyzing what's happened, the notion that there was active collusion between Trump and Putin or Russians is a dead letter. But there's still enough pockets out there that, you know, this helps keep that whiff alive. And also just the idea that Donald Trump and his administration are reckless with the law and the truth and bad overall. So it's a great thing for them to keep that alive, as opposed to the alternative, which would be to say, well, we're sorry, let's move on to something else.
Right, or there's nothing here.
Yeah.
Thanks for spending 2 years, Mr. Mueller, and producing a 432-page report. We now, the verdict is in, and we're going to move on to actually legislating some things.
Right.
But they can't beat him on the issues, Scott. They can't beat Trump on the economy or unemployment or business and consumer confidence rising at rapid levels, deregulation, rising wages. They can't beat him on that stuff. So they have to try and discredit him and his attorney general. But the worm is starting to turn now because they've gone from looking back at the Mueller report and so-called collusion to now we've pivoted to a point where we're going to look forward to finding out about how the whole investigation began at the start
and if
with
you can,
the Obama Justice Department.
And if you can call Barr a perjurer, then you can certainly mitigate any damage from that report.
Was or was not the Democrats' decision, Jerry Nadler's decision, to try and throw out staff lawyers to question Barr, trying to lay a perjury trap, get him to say something that they could later say was perjury, and Barr wasn't going to fall for it. He's too smart for that.
Yeah, you do want to lay those traps, or at least you want to question him like he's a defendant, like he's a murder suspect, and you want to sweat him out in a room rather than the more appropriate oversight role. I don't have a problem with the staff using attorneys to direct their questions when appropriate. And I know we didn't complete the thought. I just wanted to say I do think, for the record, that Bob Barr did not perjure himself based on the evidence that I see. These politicians who are on these committees are often also rans in terms of interrogators or questioners. Right. They're good at being politicians,
right?
But they're horrible at actually being lawyers. Kamala Harris, for example, asked William Barr if he had seen the underlying evidence of one of the Mueller witness documentary. Basically subpoenas get returned with, I think he said, millions of pages of evidence. And Kamala Harris wants to know if Bob Barr read those through. And I thought, it's sort of like, Tim, if you had the CEO of a bank in front of you and say, did you read this supporting documentation to Mr. Smith's mortgage application for his, $200,000 house on Main Street? And you're like, he's CEO of a billion-dollar bank. He doesn't read supporting documentation for there's an army of people to do that. When you're a senior supervisory attorney in these offices, you don't do that. And the sad thing is, of course, Kamala Harris knows that because she is
Right.
the former Attorney General of California. So it's entirely disingenuous, I think, a lot of these attacks on General Barr.
The arrogance that just is emitted by Kamala Harris is breathtaking.
And also, Tim, her assessment of the intellect and critical thinking skills of the electorate must be pretty low.
Well, or simply misguided or miscalculated.